This is a quick video just to go over the JFrame object properties and methods. And you've done all these before, so it really shouldn't be anything new, but we want to make sure that everybody's got it well under control so that every time you start an application, you're going to set the properties and methods of a JFrame. All right, and so let's go ahead and first let's just look at the different properties that we're going to be doing in here. The first one is we have the JFrame properties. All right, and so you just need to know what these are, but you don't use these specific things. Just know that the title is on the title bar. The font is how you set the font name, the style, and the size. The background color, obviously, background color. Foreground color, people don't think of it, but foreground color is the color of the text. Different than, say, if you took the web design class, where in CSS, color is the color of all the text, but you actually have to say foreground is what the color is. And I always make the mistake of going foreground color. No, just foreground. The X and the Y is simply the distance from the left side of the screen is X and the distance from the top of the screen is Y. Width gives you the width of the frame. Height gives you the height of it. Resizable, whether you can make it bigger or smaller. And that's the whole frame, bigger or smaller. And then visible, I'm not sure why you would ever want to say false, because that would hide everything and you wouldn't see it. So in this class, obviously, we're always going to set the visibility to true. All right, here's the methods that you'll use. And so you've seen us do these. We set the title, we set the font, we set the background. Now, we're not going to set the font for the frame. Instead, we're going to set the font for each control that we do. We will set the background color for the content area, not necessarily for the whole frame. Okay, setting the background color for the whole frame won't necessarily do anything. Same with the foreground. If we're going to set the foreground, we're going to set the foreground of a control. All right, and that way we can change the color of the text. Here's get X and get Y and get width and get height. Those are obviously how far from the top, the bottom, or excuse me, how far from the left, how much from the top, the entire width and the entire height. And then we'll be applying those when we do set bounds. With that, we can make it so it doesn't necessarily always appear up in the top left of the corner. We can position it anywhere we want. We'll center it on the screen is what we'll do. Set resizable, depends on how you want to do it. Part of that has to do with setting the size. All right, if you want to use set size, well, then you might want to not make it resizable. If you're going to use pack, sometimes it is nice to make it resizable so you can add a little bit of extra space. And then finally, we're going to use set default close operation. We're not going to use the window closing. All right, so let's take a look at the Eclipse part of this. All right, and so here we have a frame, and up at the top you can see we have our package, and here are those three lines that we have to be very aware of. At the top we're going to import our java.awt, and that's all the frame things that we're going to do. Then we have all the events, so that's like the on clicks and on the mouse overs and all that kind of thing. The swing is the colors and stuff like that. Notice that we are going to inherit everything from a JFrame in here, so when we make a change and we apply JFrames, it's all there. We don't have to worry about it. We inherit that. All right, and unless you took the AP Computer Science class, you're not really familiar with inheritance, but just know that it's like passed down and you have it available to you. Okay, here's our control. We've done that. We're only going to have one little text control, so some words that'll be on our page. And then remember, most of the time, our main method will simply call the constructor to make a new JFrame. All right, in this case, our JFrame is called JFrame sample. This name here, JFrame sample, has to match the name of the class, okay, because it is a constructor when we build it. All right, so the first thing we do in the constructor is we go inside and we do all of our frame methods. All right, now these are the ones with that java.awt. All right, you can see here it says java.awt.frame. All right, because we inherited everything from java.awt, including the frame, all we have to list is the set title part of it. We could type the whole thing out, but it's kind of redundant. So we set the title for the title bar. We set the size, the original starting size of the frame. We set visible to true so that we can see it, and we set it resizable false so that way we said we want it 400 by 300. We don't want it to change. And then set the default close operation. Now in our tutorial you might see sometimes a window closing event. All right, well, we're not going to use window closing. We're just going to set the default close operation. And this is a constant which basically says exit from memory when you click the red X. All right, here's now where we're going to set the background. And notice that we set the background on the content pane. The content pane is the current writable area of a frame. So the part, you'll see it, the part that's blue, okay, that's going to be the background color of the content pane. And in that content pane, we're going to use our grid bag layout. And that grid bag layout, we're going to call that one My Grid. All right, and so you've seen us do that in lessons 1 and 2. And so here in 3, we didn't change anything. Now I'm going to create a font. All right, we had a whole video on how to create fonts and Arial and fonts for the style, and then we have the font size. All right, and then I set the font to the control, and I set the foreground. Okay, that's the color of the text. I set that on the control. So I'm going to set the color of all the controls, all right, with a set foreground for that control. And then finally we add that control to my grid. And you notice that here I turned off pack. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this just so we can show you what it looks like, and I'll drag it into the window. So here in the window you can see there's my JFrame. Okay, so we have the title, JFrame sample. We have the set size 400 by 300. If I put my cursor down here in the corner, it is not resizable. Obviously it's visible. And if I were to click this red X up here, it would close and exit out of the program. I'm not going to do that right now because I want to show the rest. All right, and notice that my background color for the content pane, here's the content pane area, that part of the page is currently set to blue. I have my grid bag layout, and you really can't see that, but in order for us to place it on the page, we put it in like a grid, right? All right, and then I set the font, and I made it Arial, so yes, it is an Arial font. All right, it is in plain, so it's not bold or italic, okay? And then the size is 24, so it's a little bit bigger, about twice the size of normal. Normal being about 12 pixels, now I have it 24, and I set the font. All right, and then after I set the font, I took that new font and I set it to my sample text. I then set the foreground color, so that's why it's white, because I set the foreground color. And then I'm done doing everything I want to my label that I made, my J label. Then I'm going to put that J label, I'm going to add it to the content area, and I'm going to use my grid to add it. So that's a sample of what it looks like. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a little bit of a change. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, let's use pack, and let's see the difference that pack has. And when I use pack, I'm going to make it resizable true rather than false, because what's going to happen when I pack this is it's going to make it really small. In fact, so small I can't even move it around, so I've got to make it big enough that I can drag it over. Here you go. Here you can see it. And when I packed it, it actually started out that big. All right, notice that even though I said set size 400 by 300, pack overrides it and it becomes as big as the content. So the content was just the sample text control, and so that's all the bigger it is. But because I said set resizable true, now I can do this and I can resize it. Okay, so that's about it for the JFrame. You just need to memorize that so you can do it really quick, because every program we do, we're going to set up a JFrame and be able to put different colors and fonts and stuff like that in there.